Hi, and welcome to the OrgDev podcast. So, how can organization design support an organization with a big growth agenda? How can you leverage technology to speed up design and make your organization more efficient? And how can you use AI to create greater job automation? And what are the pitfalls you have to watch out for? These are some of the questions that Adonis Kazouris, our guest today, regularly works with within his role. Adonis is a seasoned professional with extensive experience in organization design and workforce analytics. Adonis' official title is Group Senior Organisational Design Manager at SSP Group, which is a leading food and beverage provider in travel locations worldwide. You might know them through their brands Upper Crust, Nippon Ramen, and Camden Food Company, and I owe a debt of gratitude to Upper Crust for fueling many of my trip home after a long day in London. He applies expertise in employee experience, people analytics, organization design, culture transformation, and inclusion, and diversity to help clients achieve their strategic goals and enhance their workforce performance. Prior to SSP, Adonis worked for several years in the consulting industry with Deloitte and Willis Towers Watson, where he specialized in organization design, employee experience, and DEI strategy, delivering impactful insights and strategies to C-suite stakeholders across different industries. He has a master's in HR and organizations at London School of Economics, and this is where I met Adonis as we were giving a talk to the London School of Economics to potential OD practitioners of the future, and Adonis was brilliant, sharing his insights and experience as well. He's a passionate learner and researcher, pursuing a professional doctorate in evidence-based human resource management at Birkbeck, where he explores the latest trends and best practices in the field of human resources. So thank you so much for making time, Adonis, and we're really looking forward to having a good conversation with you today.
Thank you so much for having me, Gary and Danny, and I'm very excited to be here and looking forward to our conversation as well.
So just kick us off. Just tell us a bit more about the role that you're doing now and the work that you do at SSP.
And it's a very interesting role, and I think it's also quite a broad role as well. And that was one of my key concerns when I moved from the consulting industry into in-house. And one of the key reasons why I was slightly concerned is because I've worked in-house before. Before joining Willis Towers Watson, I used to work for Coca-Cola Hellenic Bottling Company. I remember my role actually being very busy and having peaks and lows. But during the lows, it was lows to do, and I was always probably looking for some additional activities just to try and make it to 5 p.m. But currently at SSP, I would probably say it's such a fast-pacing environment that it really reminds me of how rigorous the consulting industry actually is. In SSP, we actually operate across every region that you can imagine. We operate in APAC, we operate in EME, we operate in continental Europe, UK and Ireland, and North America. And I think that's about 38 different countries right now, and we're currently expanding into a couple more countries. So you can imagine doing organizational design for all of those countries at the same time can probably keep you very busy, because my role on a day-to-day basis can actually include developing global OD frameworks, then having some workshops or sessions with those countries, probably having some more focused discussions and workshops on with some countries on right-sizing their business, or if we have actually acquired another businesses in a specific region or location, I'm a bit more focused on that country for the time being. So it's a very busy role that always keeps me busy. It has a great variety. I mean, I can probably work from a spectrum that comes from literally identifying job families within our divisions and business units, down to right-sizing some of our units and the businesses to operate more efficiently and more effective. So I'm really enjoying my current role, and I think that there are so many. The opportunities are actually countless right now, which is what I love about my current position. But it's so diverse, and every day you have different stakeholders from all over the world that no day is actually the same.
Well, it sounds like a huge role. So you're working across 38 countries, and how big's the team that you're working with?
The team actually, the global team is not that big. It's actually 4 of us right now. It's my manager who's the group director for organizational development. I'm the senior manager for organizational design for SSP Group. There are two more people that are the people analytics team. There is the group senior manager for people analytics and another analytics resource that we have in the team. I would say we're a very lean organization, and we tend to consider actually group resources and the group employees, because my role currently sits at group, as the center of excellence,
Mm.
because SSP works in a federated model where the decision-making processes and all of the key decisions are taken at the country or at the regional level. We're just there to support the countries make the right decision by either by sharing best practices or by sharing actually some success stories from other countries and how some other countries and regions have overcome the same obstacles or the same hurdles that they probably face at this point of time. So it's more around sharing best practices and try to actually lead them to make the right decision, which most of the times, hopefully, we do. But this is why I think the transition from consulting to this role was quite smooth for me, because it's very similar to being a consultant. But in this case, you're an in-house consultant with 38 different stakeholders that want to actually improve their org effectiveness at the country or regional level.
Yeah. So how do you work out where to target your kind of, you've got limited resource and limited time. How do you work out where to target your efforts? Do you go out and find the work, or do they kind of come to you and say, come and help us, we're doing this thing?
That is a great question. I think it's a bit of both.
Mm.
There are times, like for example, when we make a big acquisition in one of our regions, that work actually comes and find us. And there are some other times where we might have to actually go to the countries and share some new frameworks or some new ideas that we've been developing in the background, and try to get their buy-in or probably get their feedback or validation of the framework that we have developed, and then slowly start implementing it across all of our business. But it's a bit of both, and that's why I think you need that consulting muscle. You need that background experience within consulting in order to be successful in this role, because you need to actually be persuasive. You need to you need to get people to buy in into your ideas, and at the same time you need to offer great services so they can trust you again and want to work with you again, and try to probably increase their org effectiveness together.
And how much does the work vary across the different countries you work with? So is there like a common definition of organization design amongst your 38 countries, or do they all have different interpretations of what that might look like?
That's another great question. And I think that it really depends probably on the market activity. There are
Mm.
some markets where, are some of our oldest markets, and there is all the activity going on for a couple of years now. They already know about organizational effectiveness, and they have already some KPI measures in place. The UK and Ireland is one of those countries that I'm mentioning right now. There are, I think, one of the most advanced regions in terms of organizational design, and having a good understanding of organizational effectiveness. There are some markets that we have actually entered at a later time or at a later stage, and those markets are still at the early stages of organizational design. But there is always the appetite. There is always the
Mm.
appetite to see what the leading markets have been actually doing. How are they approaching organizational effectiveness? What are their best practices and strategies that they have been implementing lately? They want to hear those success stories, because I think everybody is very passionate within SSP. And I think that this is what is actually driving the business and is making the business so successful. That everybody wants to perform well, and they want to hear best practices and actually adjust them and implement them in a way that they can actually be more effective and more efficient in their business.
And SSP is an organization in a hurry, isn't it? I think if you look online and you sort of see the headlines around it in the business news, like it's on a real kind of growth spree. So some of it's organic, but a lot of it is through acquisition, and not just traditional China acquisition. They're acquiring organizations that are actually, in some respects, bigger than them, aren't they? Are you directly involved in some of those things? And what are you sort of seeing from those kind of from the work that you're having to do to bring those organizations on board and get them performing at the level you need to get them performing at?
It is exactly as you're describing it. We have a phrase in SSP, which is called "we're moving at pace." This is the most SSP phrase that I've heard since my day one, and it's part of the culture, right? It's part of the SSP culture that we're always on the move. We're always chasing the next big thing, but we're not actually only fast and moving at speed. We want to do things proper, and this is where organizational effectiveness comes in and highlights the importance of the work that we're actually doing. There were a couple of occasions, now back to the question, that this has happened, that we acquired actually organizations that are 2 or maybe 3 times larger than the size of our country population. And I've worked on a project like that earlier this year. So I don't know if you, but you might have seen it on the news. SSP Australia, which is part of our APAC business, acquired one of our competitors called ARE, and that business was actually 3 times larger than the size of the SSP business that we had at the time. That made the Australia business, I think, our fourth or fifth largest population across SSP. And obviously, that was a big piece of work for us to try and solve what is going to be the new structure, because the ARE model was slightly different from the SSP model that we've been actually working on and operating on. I think that was a very interesting project. We worked for a couple of weeks together with the local business and the APAC leadership, which meant I had to jump on a couple of calls at 6 a.m. or 7 a.m. in the morning. It's something that you have to do because of the time difference. But I think that it's one of the few times, even though I've worked in similar global projects in the past when I was a consultant, I felt so close to the local team. I felt I really understood all of their needs, how they needed to structure the new business. That was also inclusive of policies and practices that AERE has been using before, because you can't suddenly assume that everybody is going to follow the SSP way when you acquire a business that is 3 times your size. This is almost this isn't going to happen, and it's almost sure that this model won't succeed. So what we did is we had a couple of workshops very early in the morning, as I said before, for a few months. Thankfully, it was during the summer months, so at least when I woke up, the sun was out. There was some morning light, so I didn't feel that I was waking up in the middle of the night to facilitate a couple of workshops, which was the bright side if you want to be optimistic about it. But the workshops were actually really good, because there was actually participation from both sides, both SSP and ARE, that helped me understand how both of the models actually worked. The ARE model was a lot more operational than the SSP model. There wasn't a big population within our support functions, as we call them, meaning there weren't many employees that were performing finance, HR, or legal activities, let's say, in the ARE side of things. So we just ended up with a model that combined the best of both worlds, and both sides were actually happy when this was announced and implemented. We're still trying to fine tune a few pieces here and there, because obviously this isn't the same as any other country that we're operating in. But it's probably the best solution for Australia. All of the employees are happy, and this actually shows in the volume of sales for that particular country and region.
We love a bit of definition on here, and you're using the word model there. When you mean that, do you mean operating model? What's your definition of it? And so some people watching this will be really familiar with models. What for you is an operating model?
So the operating model for me is the framework, let's say, or the model behind how a country is actually operating. For example, we might have some countries or some regions that might be focusing a lot more on volume of sales, and this is driving the structure and how the reward system and everything else within that country or region is actually structured. However, in some other countries, the focus might be something else. It might be on individual performance, on unit performance at all levels. It might be employee engagement that is driving the operating model. And it's just small things like that, that in a federated world play such a big importance that you need to always be aware of, because there might be a global operating model at a high level, but when you actually deep dive into each of the countries or each of the regions, you will figure out and find out that it's so different at the country level and at the regional level. And this is because I think that, this shows probably how diverse we are as an organization and how great the federated model actually works.
There's a few times we've worked with federated models over the years. Like it's a different kind of beast, isn't it? Because it's about influencing and really representing the value, but you can't necessarily tell. You have to sort of get buy-in. Is that similar to the model that you have at SSP? Is it?
It is exactly that. I think it's an interesting model. I haven't seen it also while I worked in consulting in many of the clients I worked with, because most of the clients had a global model, a global framework, and that was it. Everything was strictly implemented in every country and region that was part of that organization. Even when I worked in Coca-Cola, we had a global OD framework that worked for every of the 26 countries that we were operating in, and that was it. We weren't flexible with adjustments and local implications as much as we are right now, which I think it's interesting because you can actually see that if you give the countries the freedom and the flexibility to have their own strategy, their own model, they can still produce the same results as other countries that are leading the market. It's just that they're going to implement it in a different way to make up for some, let's say, local implications or some, let's say, specific situations that are happening at the local level. And I think that this is great because this is how you actually embrace diversity. This is how you build trust across the business, and this is how you're actually showing that everyone has a fair chance to accomplish the same goals, but the way or probably the route that each country chooses to achieve that goal is different, and it works. It actually works, and but that means that the guidance that we can give to the countries is going to be always different, which needs the role that I'm actually performing in to be a bit more flexible. I need to be a bit more adjustable in certain occasions, and I need to probably revisit some of the global frameworks again and again after I receive feedback from the countries, which I'm totally fine with. But it's something that I'm experiencing for, I wouldn't say the first time, but something I've experienced here at SSP at such a high volume.
What was your journey into OD? Like, how did you actually find it?
That's a good question. I don't know if I'm allowed to say it, but when I was at uni, back at the LSE almost 10 years ago, OD, I think, was one of the classes that I didn't like. I think it was because I found it so structured. I found it so theory based and so strict that I immediately told myself, "Oh my God, this is the worst module of the six that I've actually picked," because you have to remember all of the theories, you have to apply the theories. It was a very theoretical module. So the decision I actually made post graduation is that no matter what happens, I don't want to get involved with any
We
OD
love
work.
this because you are the 47th person we've interviewed, and every single person said it was cathartic. I saw OD for the first time and it changed my life. And you're like, no, it didn't at all. In fact, it made me go the other way. That's really refreshing to hear.
It was exactly the opposite. Yeah, because it was so strict. There were so many rules, way too many theories to actually implement. And at the moment, I think I felt a bit overwhelmed. So I started my career into the field of employee engagement. My first job, fresh right after uni, was with Ipsos Mori. And I used to be part of their employee engagement team. It was a very small team here in the London offices. It was, a part or an extension, let's say, of their French team that used to run employee engagement surveys. That was a lot of fun, and this is when I started falling in love with employee insights, because the way I felt about it when I was looking at data, analyzing survey data and employee data, is that I'm getting to find out all the gossip that happens in other organizations first, and then make an educated, let's say, guess or make a presentation about this and share those results back and make some suggestions, which felt great because at that point in time, this is the idea I had about consulting in my mind. So that was my first job. My second job, it was still the same. I was working on an employee engagement role for Coca-Cola Hellenic Bottling Company. And that was when I decided to move back to Greece, where I'm originally from, for 2 years. So moved back to Greece for 2 years, had that in-house role, which was still a global role. It wasn't a local role. I was actually responsible for 26 countries, and I was managing end-to-end the whole employee engagement program for Coca-Cola Hellenic Bottling Company, meaning that I had to project manage everything from translations down to results releases and presentation delivery, uh, which was great. But as I said earlier, it was a bit boring. And I think that it got to me at the end when during times that it wasn't busy. And this is when I decided to move back to London and move into consulting.
One of the things that organizations do very badly is that they ask for the data from employees, but then they don't do anything with it or anything meaningful. And then over time, it kind of erodes trust, doesn't it? What is the secret to actually taking that really precious data and doing something meaningful with it?
I think the secret in making something meaningful is action planning, which is exactly as you said, Garin, a part that every organization completely misses because we're all so focused at let's focus on delivery, delivery, delivery. Let's get our results back. Most of the times, the engagement survey results or survey results are linked with some KPIs. So immediately, that the whole engagement survey is focusing on getting those results, hit my goals, achieve my KPIs, and get my year-end bonus, and then repeat the same process for the next year, and expect that my employees are going to be at the same level of engagement, even though we did nothing during that year. I feel that this is wrong. This is a very transactional way to look into engagement. I feel that what organizations should be doing is designing effective action plans and then being very strict with their implementation, meaning that there should be a central project management or central governance for those action plans, but should actually monitor the progress for those action plans during the year, probably have a couple of follow-up sessions with the countries, with managers, just to check how are they actually dealing with the implementation of those action plans. And then, if you implemented all of the steps for those action plans, it would be very interesting to see if engagement has actually increased for the next year survey or so. But instead of that, I think that what happened between 2018 and 2020 is that organizations moved into a model that actually listened more and more to employees. More employee engagement surveys were launched in the form of pulse surveys every quarter or every 4 months, and we stopped acting. We started listening. We stopped acting, and this is probably how engagement levels probably fell a bit more down the line.
Sorry, I interrupted your story. So I was just dying to ask that. So what did you do after that?
What I did after that, I moved back to London in early 2020 and started my career in consulting, joining Willis Towers Watson, where I was a lead consultant for employee engagement projects for many clients. And I managed a lot of big clients during that time uh, across different industries, which was something very interesting because in consulting, normally you pick a line, you pick an industry, and that's it. You stick with it by until the end of your career. But things were a bit more flexible there. As I was working more and more on employee engagement surveys and results, I realized the power of insights, and it was at the time where artificial intelligence was on the rise. It was something new and something fresh. So I started taking in a couple more trainings on workforce analytics and employee analytics. And I found an opportunity during the time with Deloitte to join their workforce analytics team as a senior consultant. So I immediately said yes, because I considered this to be the next step of my career. And as I worked at Deloitte as a senior consultant for workforce analytics, I realized that most of the key themes that I identified in employee data all had to do with the same thing: decisions that were taken at the senior level, and then they were implemented poorly. So we needed to actually redesign either a whole model or share the data to actually make them understand where some liabilities are within clients' organizations, and design the future state together. And that's slowly when all of the pieces came together. I was like, oh, my whole life I was actually trying to find the meaning into different parts of HR, but what I was doing was actually contributing a bigger picture, and that bigger picture is actually OD, because if you do OD correctly, if you do organizational design correctly within organizations, that means that you're actually ahead of the curve. You don't need to go back and then solve all those problems that were created over time. And you're always doing the right thing. You're always checking the market. You're always making sure that your employees are engaged and happy with that structure. If not, that probably means that this is the time to make another to build another more effective and efficient structure for your organization to make all the employees happy and satisfied. And it all came together at that point, and I immediately thought, oh yeah, actually OD is not as bad as I initially thought. It's a lot more interesting. There is a lot more space to do a lot to do more than just probably focus on the theoretical part and just change the structure. And what I also understood from my career and previous roles in consulting is that organizational design is probably one of the most important parts of HR, because the final sign-off for let's say big organizational change or a change in the operating model is always coming from someone who is very senior. It isn't coming always from the HR director of an organization. Sometimes it might come from the CFO, it might come even from the CEO directly. So, and I think it's an area that connects with other areas as well. It connects with finance, it connects with technology. So I think that, yeah, organizational design, in my opinion, is actually sitting at the epicenter of everything within HR, and that's how I fell in love with it. I was like during my whole career, I was actually avoiding the thing that I'm currently enjoying the most.
If you are senior, there's a lot of things that get signed off at senior level that senior people don't understand. There's a certain amount of, well, that makes sense. Is there an education element to helping them understand? Because all designs are trade-offs, aren't they? There is no such thing as the perfect design. We have to learn to live with what we're trading off and try and mitigate that as well. But often it's painted as this is the solution that's going to change everything.
Exactly. You have to always be flexible. You have to always listen. You have to practice active listening when it comes to organizational design. I think one of the pitfalls or one of the challenges that we face as a field of OD practitioners is that we're always thinking about implementation. And whenever because I understand it, it's not great when you design something with limited engagement with stakeholders, then you present it and you receive loads of feedback, and then you have to go back and change it. But I think that this is what the OD field is about. You need to actively listen to other people. You need to understand their challenges from a local perspective. You can't understand the challenge from a senior perspective, because even in consulting, most organizational design projects start when they kick off and they start. You normally speak with someone who is very senior and they describe a problem from their perspective. But when you speak to people at the local level, you immediately understand, oh, that isn't actually the issue. It is part of the issue, but there is a bigger issue here. So I think practicing active listening is always important, and it can lead you towards the right direction. And you have to be flexible. And yes, most times you will need to redesign your original design a couple of times until you get to the perfect solution. But we're talking about people here and job architecture and how their jobs, you're going to shape jobs for thousands of people in the future. So when you need to be cautious when it comes down to that, and you need to be active, you need to be flexible and listen.
OD practitioners are playing a really important role, aren't they, between bridging the kind of local experience and operational reality and that kind of strategic ambition. So it's been able to work in both worlds and create that bridge, I guess.
And I think that this is the point where you need to be very persuasive. You need to actually influence people, because after you get the local perspective, You need to share that local perspective to your senior stakeholders, because most of the times when you're in consulting, the senior stakeholders are the ones that are actually funding your project. They are the ones that are giving you the job to do in their organization. So you can't disappoint them. You still need to deliver. But when you deliver, you always need to balance it. You can't actually, fully take one side and implement the project like that, because I'm sure that if you look at organizations that have implemented such projects top down, most of those projects probably failed a couple of months later because of employee engagement or because of poor performance and bad results. You need to combine both. This is something I really enjoy. This is something I love in my current role.
And how have you got any tips for people who kind of find that challenging? How do you kind of influence your senior stakeholders? How do you manage that paradox of meeting their needs but also telling them maybe something they don't necessarily want to hear?
Yeah, and I think that this is probably one of the most challenging parts of this job. I think that you need to highlight, of course, some of the benefits of their approach, but at the same time, you need to always position this as local implications or challenges that you have identified working with the regions or the countries, why some of the initial ideas can't be implemented exactly the same as we imagined, but we need to adjust at certain level to satisfy the local needs and expectations. And I think that this is where you need to do a bit of dancing, as I say. You need to prepare your choreography and be ready to dance with the senior stakeholders. You need to take them through all of those challenges, all of those concerns, and share that if we go like that, like the way that we initially thought about and implemented top-down heavy, there are it might fail in the future, because let's say that we're working in a right sizing project. We might save some costs in the first couple of months, but probably 1 or 2 years down the line, we might have lost some very important capability for a specific part of the organization because we didn't actually listen that a team were delivering something that was business critical. Or we might actually lose some very important relationships between team and some other local stakeholders. And that team was unique and only existed in a specific country because it served that purpose. So we need to always flag that. We need to always approach this with caution. And I would say always prepare numbers. Numbers, I think, are the silver bullets in those situations. Because if you present a number to a senior stakeholder and explain that these are the concerns, if we, let's say, take this scenario, this hypothetical scenario of maintaining that specific team within our organization for the next couple of years, obviously this is going to be the cost, but the benefit of maintaining that team as part of our business is going to be X or Y. And I think that when you are able to quantify that, this is when you get the buy-in, because you're working with very senior stakeholders, as I said before. Most of the times, those stakeholders are not part of HR, and having numbers, I think, is the silver bullet that allows you to move to the next step.
Numbers are a senior manager's love language, aren't they?
Absolutely, especially when we're talking about profit numbers or sales numbers.
So you mentioned AI earlier when you were talking about kind of your workforce analytics. How is that changing the work and the way that you work and the way that you do org design?
This is a very interesting topic, and it's very close to my heart. When I joined Birkbeck University for my professional doctorate program, I always knew that I wanted to focus my research topic on AI, because I think that this is going to be the future. This is going to revolutionize the way that we work. It's going to change many things in the field, not only of OD, but it's going to be probably, as some people call it, the fourth industrial revolution, and change everything about the way we work and take us to the future of work. In the field of organizational design, still, I think it's a bit baby steps, because where AI has revolutionized the way we work, it's more around workforce analytics, and it's automating some of the calculations on people analytics. And this is very helpful because it can save you time. In terms of organizational design, I think that where it can be very helpful is that AI can run some very quick analytics when you combine, let's say, organizational data, employee engagement data, performance data, sales data, when you combine different data sets, and then AI can make some very quick suggestions for areas that you might want to look into. I think it's more like, I don't know, it's providing you hints. It's providing you with hints on where you might want to look into your organization, because probably the data looks a bit more problematic here and there. And obviously, you can do this sort of work yourself. But to me, that sounds for a big organization, but this could be 2 weeks, maybe 3 weeks kind of work. But now, AI completely automates this process. It can provide you with the right insights within literally minutes or seconds. So I think AI is very helpful, but it's not a one size fits all, or it's not a panacea. You can't use AI for everything yet. You still have to actively look into the data yourself. You still have to double check and cross check information that is coming from AI, because it's not like 100% trustworthy yet. AI can still make mistakes, because at the end of the day, AI is working on data that is coming actually from us. We produce the data and feed that data into artificial intelligence and big algorithms and large language models. So we always need to take AI suggestions with a bit of caution, and try to figure out what works best for organization that way. There are some pretty good tools, though, I have to say, right now, that might work on artificial intelligence, might not necessarily work on artificial intelligence, that have revolutionized the way that organizational effectiveness and organizational design is performed in organizations. I'm a big advocate, I'm a massive fan of OrgView. I think it's an amazing tool. It has revolutionized the way that OD professionals work on a day-to-day basis, the way that you can analyze your data, the way that then you can proceed to design a future state scenario and the future state modeling. It's so easy and seamless, and can provide you with many insights. And it's very visual as well, because this is what an OD professional actually needs, right? An OD professional needs a tool and can very seamlessly produce insights that they can then share with senior management and senior stakeholders. And OrgView can do that for you. Back to the question, because I know that I'm getting very enthusiastic with OrgView and all of
Well,
those
all give you is really good
tools.
though, isn't it? Because it does things like you put like how many levels you want, and it can quickly crunch the numbers and give you different scenarios. So it enables you to make more informed choices, doesn't it? And it does a lot of the analytics on your behalf. Is that right?
Exactly. OrgView is amazing. OrgView is amazing. I used OrgView for the first time in my life back at Deloitte. And we started using OrgView recently at SSP, and it has worked miracles. I think that it revolutionized the way that we worked and the way that we analyze data, we crunch through data. It's amazing, because at the end of the day, what your senior stakeholders actually want is a way to visualize immediately what is going to be the opportunity of, let's say, a suggestion that you're making, and what are the alternative scenarios, so they can make the most informed decision that they can. It's all about making data-based decisions, and where data is pointing that we should actually move to.
And then just one final question about AI, because one of the things you've been thinking about is AI and things like unconscious bias. That's the kind of thing that you're thinking about, aren't you, in terms of the validity of it?
100%. And I've been working a lot on the field of AI. I've presented actually a big piece of my research last year at a conference in Maastricht over the summer. It was not unconscious bias. It was more around artificial intelligence, AI, and making decisions around resourcing. So the whole concept was AI and how some of the decisions that we make in our day-to-day life and day-to-day business can actually affect employees. And I did a very interesting experiment. I've actually experimented a bit with a big audience and asked them if they would prefer decisions in terms of resourcing, meaning if you were to undertake a new project or a new opportunity, and this decision was made by your manager, a physical person, or if this decision was made by AI, which one you would actually prefer more, and you would find more just. Interestingly enough, but that was during the early times of AI. People still prefer the resourcing decisions to be made by their manager. They prefer the human task allocation compared to AI-driven task allocation. And I think that this says a lot about our perceptions and the unconscious biases as well, to move back into the unconscious bias topic now, because AI is still something new. For many people, it might be a black box that we can't really understand. We can't comprehend how it works. And sometimes we might think that it has all of the right solutions and the right decisions for us. Some other times we might think, oh, yeah, but what if AI is wrong? You can see that ChatGPT can give you still wrong results. It can provide you with wrong inputs. What can we do during that situation? And it's interesting because another researcher, Margaret Mitchell, that I follow, and she's very passionate about AI and unconscious biases. She has done a big research on that topic, and essentially, where the outcome of that research is that we need to trust algorithms. We still need to trust AI and everything. However, what we need to question is what kind of data are we feeding the AI? Because you need to imagine that AI still is a baby, right? It's behaving like you are behaving. So if you're feeding the AI incorrect kind of data, if you're feeding AI incorrect, if you're making wrong calculations in the algorithm, it is still going to produce wrong assumptions, wrong decisions, and from some experiments, it has been identified that there are still unconscious biases in the AI within algorithms. And I think that the one that has stuck with me, and it's an example I'm sharing with everyone. Someone actually asked AI, I can't remember if it was ChatGPT or if it was another model, but asked an AI model. It asked a couple of questions about two kids, a boy and a girl. And it started asking more questions and challenging the AI about some classes that they enjoy at school. And the boy enjoyed, let's say, maths and wanted to become a doctor. And then the girl enjoyed more literature and wanted to become a teacher. And this is clearly biased because of the data that has been fed into the algorithm, the AI. And the AI clearly took the most popular opinion or what it identified in that data and produced those, let's say, those outcomes. So we still have to take everything with a, we have to challenge everything that AI says, but at the same time, we need to actively train them to become better and remove those unconscious biases.
Yeah, I think it's so important. And my experience of ChatGPT, it presents things with such certainty as well. You ask it, and it's very certain that it's
There's
got
no
the right
doubt.
answer. There's no doubt in its mind.
Yeah, but it's interesting when you challenge it, because there were many times where I've used AI models, not only ChatGPT. There are a couple of other ones, and I can say that I've used it either for my personal research or for my PhD, and it provided me with some insights that I was looking for, because I was looking for some specific stats. And I was like, okay, can you give me the source? And it gives me the source without a hyperlink. I ask again, can you provide me the source in a hyperlink? It does provide me with a hyperlink. Then I'm like, okay, can you tell me the website so I can go and look for it? And there was no website. It kept telling me lies, but it was actually writing down those lies and sharing them with me.
Uh-oh.
Yeah.
What would you say some of the biggest lessons are that you've learned that you carry in that underpin how you approach your work?
Yeah. I think that probably the biggest one, especially in the field of organizational design, is approach things with empathy and always be open-minded. I think that when you actually get into the role of organizational design, and I think that I had this approach when I used to work in consulting a lot more. I was like, oh, I'm here just for this project. I need to approach it that way, get to the desired results or desired outcomes, and then jump onto my next project. It's not always like that, because at the end of the day, you have a big responsibility on your shoulders. You're designing the future state within other organizations, and you're designing jobs and how jobs are going to be structured for thousands of people. So you have a big responsibility on your shoulders. You need to be very open-minded. You need to approach things very carefully. You need to hear all perspectives that are on the table. And even if some perspectives might not be on the table, you need to actively look for them. You need to listen to people. You need to share those perspectives with senior stakeholders, because most of the times there are some key concerns that people have when it comes to organizational design or restructuring or right sizing their business, uh, all those things. So you need to always approach things very open-minded, with loads of empathy, and be an active listener. I think that being an active listener, don't just be there because you have that meeting in your diary and this is just another meeting that you have to go through before you implement your decision. You need to actively listen what other people have to share, why probably your suggestion might not work, and then take that feedback, try to adjust your work to it, share them back with them, engage with senior stakeholders, share all of those outcomes with your senior stakeholders, and try to find a solution that works for everyone. Don't look at OD like this is a project. It's not a project. It's bigger than a project. You're an architecture of different organizations, and you're giving life to positions within an organization. So don't look at organizational design as something that is a project that is on a project basis.
And you're doing your doctorate. Obviously, that's enough in itself. But how do you invest in your own learning and development? And do you plug it into particular books or podcasts that you really enjoy?
Yeah, I think that you're right, Garin. What I found challenging for the past couple of years is that my personal time now with the professional doctors is very limited, because normally I dedicate one day of my weekend and most of my evenings uh, into getting this new kind of knowledge and understanding a bit more about future trends, about organizational design, artificial intelligence, how those two worlds can actually work together and shape the future of work. So there are plenty of times where when I can find myself listening to other people's opinions and expert opinions. And obviously, your podcast is one of the best places to do that, because you have the finest guests in the field of organizational development, organizational design, that can always share fresh and new perspectives. So definitely, your podcast is one of my sources to hear what's going on in the OD world. But I think that other than that, there are a couple of reports that are very trustworthy and normally I look into. For example, the Harvard Business Review reports, I follow them on a weekly basis. I try to see what's new in the world. And they also have a podcast that they have, the HBR Idea Cast, which some of the times shares some good perspectives around the future of work, and I find it also very helpful. And from a broader HR perspective, I try to keep up with some annual or biannual reports from Deloitte, like the latest global human capital trends. It's one of my go-to places whenever I want to see what's happening in other organizations from an HR perspective. McKinsey reports as well are really good to go through and read what's been going on. And from books, I would probably say the Reinventing Organizations by Frederic Laloux is one of my favorite OD books that I've read recently. I've read it last summer, and it has still stick with me because there are so many interesting perspectives here about how you can shape the future of work within your own organization, and what is the point for you to start. So those are normally resources that I use on a day-to-day basis. And on top of that, I do try to automate my work and look for new, let's say, insights and resources using AI. There are plenty of AI tools that you can use nowadays, not only ChatGPT. There are loads of AI tools that you can use. So I try to utilize them as much as possible, but still, take everything I say with a pinch of salt, because sometimes AI tools might not be perfect. They might give you resources that might not even exist. So always ask for a hyperlink. If that hyperlink exists and has the same percentage, use that. Otherwise, please don't use it.
And then just a last question. So one of the reasons we started the podcast was to inspire the next generation of OD practitioners. So what advice would you give to somebody who's listening and thinking, I quite like the idea of getting started in org design? What advice would you give them?
Probably the best advice I would give to someone who's starting their career now in organizational design is to approach things with an open mind. Try to probably look for solutions that work for everyone, not just solutions that can please the most senior stakeholder. Those are practical solutions I think that I have mentioned before. But at a personal level, I think that organizational design is actually many different things. They need to probably find what organizational design means for them. For me, for example, it's the glue that brings all of the pieces together. I now think of myself as an architecture who is designing new roles within large organizations and changing people's lives, hopefully for the better. I think organizational design also has a deeper meaning. So look for that deeper meaning, what that deeper meaning means for them, because it's not you can't think of organizational design only as a job. I think I'm a bit more romantic, so I try to find the deeper meaning in everything I do, and I do this. But I would challenge them to probably think about it themselves, be a bit more skeptic, and try to realize what organizational design means for them and how do they envisage themselves in the next 3 to 5 years within the field of organizational design, and what is it that they want to accomplish. Because I think that when you think what you want to accomplish, this is when you actually start to think about people and how you're changing people's lives for the better. It gives you meaning. It gives you meaning and makes you more passionate about what you do.
I've really enjoyed this. It's been really good, really good. And there's just so much good quality insight that you're sharing and experience from the front line. And it's really taken a different dimension to organization design. Danny, what stood out for you from this conversation today?
Gosh, where to start? It's been such a fantastic conversation. I think you've shared so many brilliant things. I think what you said earlier up front about sharing success stories being a really important way of kind of inspiring different parts of your organization to really get inspired about what's possible in terms of organization effectiveness. The importance of kind of acting as that bridge between local teams and senior leaders and kind of managing that dynamic. And then I loved what you said about the employee engagement results, that we're doing a lot of listening to employees, but we mustn't forget to act. And that's what really matters. So those would be my 3 takeaways.
Yeah, and ditto on that. I think, the insight and action part and putting governance around it, because you only get 2 or 3 chances to ask staff and then they'll stop telling you as well. The other things I loved was just the power of persuasion of numbers and that they tell a story and we have to feel comfortable using them. And one of the last things you mentioned there, which is there is a huge people element to organization design. It's very easy to see it as a task, but if you actually give it as that you're giving life to roles and you're creating a context for them to thrive, and then you see it beyond the immediate task and see that what you're doing has much more implication into the future, is really powerful. Adonis, it's been brilliant. Really enjoyed it. If you want to follow your work, you post some great insights on LinkedIn. What's the best way for people to reach out to you?
I think definitely the best way is connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm more than happy to share insights, read about other people's insights, and LinkedIn is a great platform to do so. So please feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn.
Well, if you've enjoyed our conversation with Adonis, we'd love it if you hit the like button. The algorithm gods love it even more if you subscribe to the channel. The channel is growing all of the time, and it just gives us an opportunity to invite brilliant people like Adonis who are out in the field making meaningful and significant change to share their stories and their insights as well. So you can always catch these podcasts. They come out weekly on all the regular audio platforms and on YouTube as well. Please do subscribe to it. And if you feel someone would really benefit from hearing from Adonis's insights on organization design, then please feel free to share the video or the podcast with them directly. But thank you so much. But most importantly, Adonis, we've made you late for your next meeting. We know, so please say sorry to the group of people you're letting down. But thank you so much for making time for us. And this is one of our last episodes before Christmas, so we hope you have a lovely Christmas as well.
Thank you so much both, and I really enjoyed my time with you both as well. It was amazing, and you both also have a fantastic Christmas and a lovely New Year.